Okay, this is yet another road rant. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's MLK's birthday holiday. So I guess I'll rant about him. Well, I'll talk about my favorite speech of MLK. It's the blueprint speech. Everyone knows about I Have a Dream, and that would probably be my favorite speech. But let's talk about, my favorite of his unpopular speeches, and it's the blueprint speech. One of the quotes from it. The quote, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then what? Crawl, exactly. So that's from the blueprint speech. But the reason the blueprint speech really affected me is he gave me a word that I didn't already have, and that word is somebodiness. And it means dignity, respect, self-esteem, identity, awareness of your value as an individual, somebodiness. We all have to maintain our somebodiness. And in my opinion, the best way to do that is in service to others. Because human beings know who they are based on reflections. And if you can have a positive effect on the people around you, the fact that you are somebody is undeniable. But that takes work, that takes effort. And what goes wrong with a lot of people is they're too lazy to be somebody. They don't want to be nobody. Because being somebody takes work. And I don't care what your upbringing, what your background, what your status, there's work to do. I don't care who you are, there's work to do. If you want to be somebody. And it will behoove you to be somebody, because if you don't, you will suffer. You will suffer mentally the most. You will suffer from depression. You will be depressed if you do not believe that you add value to other people. There's no way around it. The human being is supposed to serve and work and act and help. And when we don't do that, we suffer. We suffer internally and we suffer externally. But back to MLK. I'm thinking, if he was around today, what would he be saying? Well, he would still be stomping for universal basic income. He'd be rocking with Andrew Yang and Bernie Sanders politically. That's one of the things a lot of people don't know about Martin Luther King Jr. They don't know that a big part of his platform was a financial platform. It was an economic platform. At some point, he realized that poverty as a condition was insurmountable with only individual effort. And I know a lot of people would disagree with that, because people do come up out of poverty. True. But when people come up out of poverty, there's still poverty left behind them. It's just different people in poverty. It's different people. Now, in order for poverty to be eradicated, which is a worthy and noble goal, In order for poverty to be eradicated, there needs to be a minimum standard of living. Because the reason that people are suffering and struggling now is because there is no minimum. There is no minimum. You would think the minimum is 0. Well, you could blow right past 0. You can have a negative existence with an absence of resources that you own and a lot of resources that you owe. I'm talking about negative net worth. So it can be, there's literally no limit to how bad it can be. So what Martin Luther King Jr. was proposing was a universal basic income. That's what he was proposing. He was proposing that every American upon a certain age receive X amount of dollars a month, an adequate amount to survive. And that might be a good approach. It might be. Not enough money to thrive, because thriving is a matter of effort. But we're so divergent from nature that we feel like even survival must be a struggle when the opportunity to alleviate that struggle and that suffering exists. What else? Also, when I think about MLK, I'm looking at today's climate, and I'm thinking, like, who's the MLK of today? The closest person I can think of is the minister Louis Farrakhan from the Muslims, the black Muslims. But he doesn't really have mainstream appeal. I mean, people know his name, but he doesn't really carry an MLK message. The most MLK-like public message is probably Bernie Sanders. Or maybe Tim Black from The Real Tim Black YouTube show. But he's all about reparations. That's not really a complete vision. I think reparations make sense. I mean, it'd be nice. I think it would work. But the chances of making it happen, I just don't see it. I don't see a strategy that would work to get reparations done. Even though the effect of slavery and Jim Crow persists. You know, it's just been transmuted. The current slavery is prison. If you don't think that slavery exists today, you got it wrong. There's a cool documentary on Netflix called The 13th. You should probably check out. It talks about how the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, except for criminals. So the game now is to label a black man a criminal as fast as possible. That way you get your slave back. Because you need your slave back. So those effects are still lingering. And I don't see anybody to carry the mantle. I can speculate as to why. It could be because the black community is kind of I don't want to say disintegrated, but it's broken into pieces. That's for sure. Now, there are some things that all black people have in common. All of us. We all have similar life experiences. We all react to the same threats. And we're all starting from a diabolical foundation. So I don't even know if MLK will be stomping for reparations, because he was going universal. And I think he was going universal for the same reason that I'm going universal, and the reason that I don't think reparations will work. Because identifying the descendants of slaves and compensating them directly the process would be so complex and convoluted unnecessarily, to the point to where it's administratively dead. They're like, oh, you can get your reparations, but you got to fill out 35 forms, wait 4 years. Like it'll probably work like immigration. It'll cost you money and time and complexity, and it'll be, you'll have to hop through a lexicon of verbiage with words you've never even seen before. So, but universal is a whole different deal, because universal does actually start to bring the country together. Poverty is a major problem in the black community, but it's not just black people who are poor. So poverty is an issue for every demographic. So the universal approach would absolutely help the black community, but it would also help everybody else. And I don't know if black people will be satisfied with that. I don't know. I don't know if we still feel a need to feel to be special. I mean, we are special, but there's a distinction between that and the need to feel special. The need for separate handling and compensation for the wrongs of the past. But as long as the black people in this country are dealing with the lingering effect of building this country for free, and white people are dealing with the lingering benefit of having the country built for free, we just have to realize this country was built with dirty hands. At some point, we need to wash our hands. We'll say, oh, I can't wash my hands, I'm too busy building. You need to pause building for a minute. Wash your hands. Make things good with people. Alleviate some suffering. Abandon known predatory practices, such as the prison industrial complex. And maybe we'll be all right.